Hey YouTube, I'm Mars1952 and I'm working on my RV today. This is a Dodge Sprinter chassis, actually Mercedes chassis when Mercedes owned Dodge. I'm going to change the rear shocks. And I live in the mountains. This is the only shaded driveway spot that I have that's not even close to flat. You'll see in a minute. And a while back I made these ramps, made a long video about it, and I decided to just put the assembly up in the corner here, just run while I'm yammering. And because it's pretty straightforward, the assembly of these things. But I needed to get quite a bit of lift. I've got a string level, the string run to the front tire here, and right there is, it's actually just a little bit high. If I adjust it down a little bit, right there's level, so it's about a 1/2 inch high. And this is 7 2x4s, which is 10.5 inches. That's quite a ways to lift up an RV. So anyway, I made these ramps, and you can see they don't fit underneath there. So I had to make them in 2 pieces. So I got a front piece and a back piece, and they interlock to keep, just in case it wants to scoot. Now there's several design principles you want to follow if you're going to make these yourselves. One is when you're going up, if you try to go up more than about 1.5 inches with 2x4 width, it'll tend to scoot on the edge. You can compensate for that by beveling it, but that limits your footprint. So the first ramps I made, the steps were closer together and the tires just spun on them. So in this case I used 2 2x4 widths, and the tire comes up and sets on here. It has a good footprint with which to drive up onto the next one. Now another principle is that these steps are hard to feel. You would think just putting 1 2x4 here, you'd be able to feel it when your tires go up against it. But since these are fairly tall tires, they roll over these bumps easily. So I put a double 2x4 here to make more of a step, more of a wheel chock to hold it when I hit that top spot. That way I don't have to have a spotter. Now another thing is that if you make this blunt down here and the wheel comes up against this, it's more likely to want to tip, especially the taller you get. So I had this, it sticks out a little bit further, so the force is more like an angle like that. Makes it a little harder to make it tip. I suppose if you really tried hard, you could make it tip. Another thing to keep in mind is you have these 2-step ramps like this. You just can't drive off of them because this will bottom out on the upper part. You've got to take this, you've got to go down to the lower part, take this out, then you can drive down. Now as far as the assembly of these things, I just use scrap 2x4s. You can see it's hollow on the inside, so it's not as heavy as it would have been if I'd used solid lumber the whole way through. And at the bottom, to get the height, they're just crisscrossed. And then once I got up a little higher, I stacked them one on top of the other like that. Getting height, and this gives me strength too. So imagine when the dual wheels are coming up on here, they're mostly directly above these 2x4s. Some of the tires on the inside. If you try to run the same weight of vehicle right up the middle, these 2x4s may not be strong enough. I don't know, but probably would be. So I guess that about covers it. I just use scrap, minimal amount of wood, a nice footprint area for your tire to push up onto the next section. And I nailed them together with ring shank nails. They're not going to come apart very easily. Alright, so let me drive it up on here. I'll show you how to do it. Now, I don't remember if I said this or not, but on the other side, I've got a 3.5 inch tailpipe sticking out right here. That's why I had to start with such a low bore. You can see here, I've got more room here. I could come up higher on this side, but not on the other side. Alright, so let me set these up. Just put that in there, try to line it up sort of square. And I have to go back and sight it a little bit to make sure I'm reasonably square to the tires. And then I'll back up on that section. like I said before, it's a little bit difficult to feel the difference between one step and another. And to make sure I wasn't going to run off the end of it, I stopped in the middle and came and looked. Now I'm going to cut in a technique here that you can use if you're by yourself to give you a pretty good idea of where you are on the ramp. Now let's say that you have a ramp that's 3 feet long and that's where you want to stop. So you can use a tape measure if you want to. I can look when I'm driving, I can look straight down from this spot. So I take from this spot back about 3 feet. So then I can back up so that this spot here lines up with the stick. And I know I've gone 3 feet. Otherwise, it's pretty difficult to tell. But now I've got it on there, so I'm going to put this section in place. Make sure it's locked in place. You can see it's just a little bit of a lock. Once you get some weight on there though, that'll press it down. I have run into problems before when I use this on gravel, because when I try to pull this section out, the gravel rolls and binds and causes it to jam. So on asphalt or concrete, that should work fine. Okay, well, that's it. I'm up on the boards. I'm fairly well centered. I'm sticking out a little bit on the inside. You can see I'm a little bit off here. I guess someday I'll try to figure out a way to make sure that's straight, but if you have your ramps wide enough, it doesn't matter if you're off a little bit. One last note I forgot to mention is that when you're leveling a truck, RV, or whatever on your ramps, let gravity help you out. Always back downhill onto them or pull downhill onto them. Most of the videos I've seen of people driving up on ramps on YouTube, they drive uphill onto them. It doesn't make any sense to me. Or sometimes they even back uphill. When I choose a campsite and decide where to park it, I position the RV so that the back wheels are uphill. That way I don't have to block them. Block the front wheels is a lot easier. And then I'll put the ramps in front of the wheels and I'll just pull forward onto them, going downhill, using gravity as an assist. Another advantage of these two-stage ramps is once you get it up and positioned, you can get this part out of the way. Just slide down. It gives you creeper room and place to crawl underneath there. Now putting it back in is not so hard. I'm done monkeying around with the RV. I changed the shocks, the struts, and rotated the tires. So now it's time to drive it down off of this. It's a two-step process. So I want to drive down to set here so I can get this out of the way. Well, that's not far enough, is it? We have pressure on that back block still. And it's going to be a three-step process anyway.